everybody. So thanks for joining us today. So today we're really going to start to really chat with you about your e-commerce strategy and take a look at what's going on in the industry, especially as it pertains to the B2C markets and how that's now influencing some behavior in the B2B markets. And also start to take a look at how you can now start to implement e-commerce strategies that attract customers and that drive sales through that channel. So from an agenda standpoint, what we'll look at is the shift, which I've talked a little bit about, the Amazon threat, because even though they've been traditionally a B2C marketplace, they have now entered into the B2B world. Then we're going to talk about how you analyze where you are as an organization. Then I'm going to hand it off to Amber to take us through how pros can help. And then we're actually going to show you a hands-on e-commerce demo that we have of how you can envision an e-commerce, your e-commerce strategy or an e-commerce experience once you start to plug in some of the different services that pros delivers to help with the personalization. And then the last one, which we'll finish up with, is extending personalization. And this really is more of a forward-looking section where we'll start to talk about what are some of the innovative ideas that pros has on how you continue to drive personalization forward. Okay, so let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about the e-commerce shift. So if you look at how your buyers are engaging with you, there are a couple of different touch points in which your buyers can actually touch your brand, touch your company. The first one is with your direct sales team. The majority of organizations have some kind of direct sales team which support the company to help sell their products, their services. The other one is through your partners or your inside sales team. And then the last one is through the e-commerce. So if you look at traditionally, e-commerce has been an area where you use to provide information to your buyers. So buyers are looking for maybe what are your products. Maybe they're looking for certain specs. Maybe they're looking for a data sheet. They go onto your e-commerce site. But what we're seeing is that a lot of buyers are actually preferring to engage with companies through the e-commerce site, not just for information, but also to drive sales. And we have this stat here, and this was actually put together by both Gartner and Forrester. And it basically is talking about how by 2020, 80% of the buying process is gonna occur without any direct human-to-human interaction. So there is a need for you to start to take a look at what kind of experience are my customers getting when they come into my e-commerce site. Is my e-commerce site currently architected to be able to drive sales, or is it just a hub for my buyers to get information about some of my products? So if you look at some more stats that we have from Forrester and also from Gartner, so Andy Hoare, who was at Forrester, he actually is at a different company now, but he wrote a report, and it talked about how by 2020 B2B commerce is going to grow to be $1.2 trillion, and not only is it growing to be that much, it's actually going to be the fastest growing segment of the commerce market. So a lot of companies now are looking at how do you make that shift, because traditional commerce, right, has been through your direct sales team, whether your partner teams or your inside sales team. How do you make the shift so that your companies or so your buyers can go onto your e-commerce site and self-serve successfully? So when they get onto that e-commerce site, what kind of experience are they going to get? The other thing that we see is that the commerce platform market is going to continue to grow, and it's forecasted to have a compounded annual growth of 15.1% from between 2016 to 2021. So the market is growing, the market is booming. Now, if you look at some of the things that are driving those types of behavior, so I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys have heard through the common thread through a lot of the sessions, through the keynotes, and even through some of the other sessions that Jim Collins and some of the ones that you might have gotten a chance to sit into. A lot of it is being driven by the new buyer. If you look at the characteristics of the new buyer, we as consumers have accessibility to lots of different information. And the behavior that we have in our consumer life is that whenever we need to find something, we just grab our laptops, or we grab our tablets, or we grab our phones, and we search for the information. Now, the behaviors that we have as consumers is being driven into the B2B space. And it's not that it's not that you're competing with e-commerce companies, but you now have the same expectations on your e-commerce site. So take, for example, today 68% of B2B buyers prefer to do research online on their own. And this is significantly up from 57% back in 2015, or 53% in 2015. And if you look at where a lot of companies are now driving their investments, they're looking at a way or ways to actually use e-commerce to be a sales channel that is driving business, because their buyers want to engage with them on that. And as they are engaging with them on that e-commerce, on their e-commerce channels, the question is, what kind of experience are they getting? Can they find the information that they're looking for? Can they get the price? Do they have to engage with a salesperson? So these are some of the challenges that are facing organizations. But investing to fix, or investing to make sure that your buyer has a good journey on your e-commerce site is something that you've got to be thinking about as leaders in your respective spaces. So if you look at some other stats, so by 2020, smart personalization engines will be used to recognize customer intent to enable businesses, by 2020, smart personalization engines that are used by customers will increase their profits, or the customers who actually use them will actually increase their profits by 15%. And then by 2018, organizations that have fully invested in all types of online personalization will outsell companies that have not by 30%. So there is a growing need to actually start to plug in different types of personalization engines to expand your e-commerce presence, to make sure that your customers are getting the information that they need and getting the experience that they need. And then the last one, which we have on here, is that 40% of B2B commerce sites will actually use price optimization algorithms and configure price quote to dynamically calculate and to configure their products. So if you look at what Pros is doing, a lot of you guys know we've got a suite of products, everything from CPQ, pricing optimization, we've got our control to help with pricing administrations. Now what we're doing is that we're taking those products and we're now enabling those capabilities and driving them into the e-commerce market. And the reason why we're doing so is that it's important that your buyers get the same experience, whether they're on your commerce site, whether they're with your direct sales team, whether with your partner teams. So we're looking at ways that are going to help you as a company not only enable the more traditional sales channel, but also enable this commerce channel, which is now growing. So now let's switch and talk a little bit about the big giant, so the Amazon threat. As you guys know, Amazon has been a traditional B2C marketplace. You go there, if you, as consumers, if you need toothpaste, toothbrush, I buy basically everything on Amazon today. And one of the things I talked about in the earlier slides is how the next growth engine, or their next growth area, is in the B2B commerce space. And so what you see now is Amazon entering into the B2B commerce space. And they're making lots of investments. And as a matter of fact, they stood up their B2B e-commerce marketplace, and their revenue went from $0 to over $1 billion in only 11 months. And if you look at it, the other thing that's a little bit scary is that their commerce business model is actually, or their commerce marketplace is growing at more than 20% every single month. They've got, and if you look at how people are actually searching for products, so if you think about it as a consumer, if you need to search for a product, I literally go to Amazon if I'm trying to buy a product. So because of that behavior, 55% of internet searches for products now originate on Amazon and not on Google. So if you look at what they've done, so they've cannibalized the B2C market. Everybody knows Amazon they are the big hairy giant in the B2C market. In the B2B, they're now focusing and they're shifting their attention to the B2B market with an aim of cannibalizing that market similar to what they've done to the B2C market. The good thing is that Amazon's experience isn't perfect just yet. If you think about whenever you go on Amazon and you're trying to search for a product, it can get overwhelming, right? If you have some of your products even on Amazon, if it's not listed on the first page, if it doesn't have a really great rating, the chances of people actually finding those products on Amazon tend to be really low. So what we're talking about here is how you can now maybe have some of your products still on Amazon if you guys want to continue with that strategy, but how you can invest in having a good e-commerce experience on your site. I think about myself as consumers, and you guys hear about all the brick and mortar stores that have gone bankrupt, that have closed down. And I think about what I purchase on Amazon, and it tends to be like household items. If I need to purchase anything personal, maybe a dress, shoes, I don't go on Amazon to make those purchases. If I do want to do it online, I might go to a department store or maybe somebody like a Nordstrom or to get the products because they have a really great e-commerce experience. And so that's what you as a company have got to look at is how do I make sure that when my customers come to me, they've got that great experience so that they're not going searching for products that look like mine on competitor sites or maybe going to search on even Amazon.com because there's no guarantee that your products will show up on the first page for companies to, for your buyers to actually make that purchase. So these are some of the challenges that are facing you and some of the decisions that you guys have got to make in how you invest in your e-commerce experience for some of your buyers. So now let's transition and start talking about where are you as an organization. And here I just kind of have just some questions and some things to kind of spur some ideas as to how do you now start to analyze your e-commerce presence. So start from the left. So what is your customer's journey on your e-commerce site? Look at it from the lens of you're not familiar with the products. Just go onto your e-commerce site. What do you see? Is it just information? If a customer doesn't know for the exact product that they're looking for, is it easy for them to find the right product? So that's the second question. How easy is it for buyers to find the products that they need on your site? Is it easy to navigate your site? Are you able to put some of maybe your products that require more complex configurations on your site? Do you have confidence that if you put those on your site that your buyers know how to actually configure them without making a mistake? If they do make a mistake, is there some way to catch it before it goes even onto the production floor? So these are different things that tend to frustrate buyers and why they might not want to engage on your e-commerce site. And these are different challenges that you've got to now start to think about how do we solve this so that I provide a frictionless and a personalized experience for my buyers. The other one is, can your buyers make a purchase on your site without engaging a salesperson? I think that this is really key. If you look at, we talked about the profile of the new buyer, 68% of them are actually doing research on their own. If you look at where Gartner and Forrester are also talking about that, the majority or 80% of e-commerce or buying interactions are going to occur without any direct human-to-human interaction. So if that's the case, can your customers actually do this? Can they make a purchase without having to call up somebody, without having to call in inside sales, without having to reach out maybe even to your support teams? It's very important that you now start to figure out, how do I solve this to make it easy for my buyers to engage on my site? And then the last one is, how easy is it to manage buyers as they move through different sales channels? I'm going to stop and talk a little bit about this because I feel like this is a very important point. So here at Pros, we'll talk about what we call omni-channel or sales channel fluidity. And channel fluidity is the idea that a buyer can start at a certain channel and move to another channel without a lot of disruption. So if they decide that they are going to start on your e-commerce channel and they want to move to maybe pick up the phone and call a salesperson, does a salesperson have the visibility to see what the customer has been doing on the e-commerce channel? Or if they want to move vice versa, if they want to start with a direct sales team or maybe start with an inside sales and eventually move to an e-commerce channel, can they do that? And is that process seamless? Is that process fluid? Or is it going to are there going to be lots of issues? Are they going to is it going to cause a lot of disruption to the order process? So it's very important that as you think about your strategy, think about the tools that you are using to enable your sales organization so that they can actually deliver things to your customers quicker. Think about maybe what you invested to get the pricing, to get the right price to your customers. And think about ways that you can now start to take some of those technologies and deliver them directly to the customer, because we know that the customers don't want to necessarily engage with a human. Okay. So what we have here is a traditional digital commerce platform, and these are the different areas in which you'll see with a commerce platform. And when I talk about commerce platforms, I'm thinking about things like a Cloud Craze, I'm thinking about like an SAP Hybris, Magento, etc. So if you are a platform provider, you tend to have some of these pieces, but you're not going to have all. And from a company's perspective, it's important to have all these pieces to be able to deliver a good digital commerce experience for your buyers. So you've got the experience management, you've got commerce management, order management, product information management. There are lots of different areas, and if you look at how you can actually, your customers can actually access any one of these areas. You can go through a tablet, mobile, web, kiosk, social. There are lots of different ways, lots of different touch points into your company on an e-commerce environment. So the question is, how are you putting together these hooks to be able to deliver that seamless e-commerce experience? Now, this was a quote that was taken from, it's actually an older report, but it's actually still very applicable in today's environment. And it talks about how a digital commerce site averages no more than 15 integration points. And when you look at what an integration point, so you have a commerce platform. So we talked about the SAP Hybrises, the Magentos of this world, Cloud Craze, et cetera. And what they'll do is that they'll have different services or different applications that are now plugging into these platforms to be able to deliver that specific capability that they want their customer to have. So remember we talked at the very beginning, I showed you a slide, or I showed you a stat that said that by 2018, a lot of these commerce sites are now going to be looking at configure, price, quote tools, and also pricing optimization. So what they'll do is that they'll get that service, or they'll get that application, and they'll hook it onto their e-commerce environment so that when their customers come to self-serve, they now are able to get either do some configuration or get the right price without having to engage with a salesperson. So these are just some of the things that I wanted to touch on. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about, because before we make the transition and really look into some specifics as to where pros can help, is this whole idea around personalization. If you think about what makes an e-commerce environment, what makes it succeed or what makes it very good is when you can tailor that experience to that person that is doing the search, or to that person that's engaging with that e-commerce environment. And so personalization is key, because personalization is going to help them find what they need, and it's going to tailor their journey on that site to that individual buyer. So as you think about, how do I now start to make my e-commerce experience more relevant? How do I now start to drive more sales? it's important for you to think about, how do I deliver a personalized experience? Because that is what is going to make your customers continue to come back to you. That's what's going to drive loyalty. That's what's going to drive customer retention. So it's very important for you to think about how you're now personalizing the experience so that the buyers have a good journey on your e-commerce site. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amber, and she's going to now start to talk about some of the specifics that we have at Pros that is going to help you power up your e-commerce platform or your e-commerce experiences with some of our services.
Great, thanks, Loretta. Again, my name's Amber Weaver. I lead our product management team around our pricing solutions, so guidance, control. And before I get started, we only have a few minutes. I want to let you know, I'm going to introduce you to each one of these capabilities of how Pros today, with our existing products, can be leveraged to power your e-commerce solution. But I want to invite you to visit the Innovation Center and visit the opportunity detection, visit the control, visit guidance, visit Smart CPQ, and talk to them more specifically and more in depth how those solutions can play into your e-commerce environment. So with that, I've engaged with a few attendees at the e-commerce booth, and the question has been a few times, well, what is Pros' e-commerce solution? So at Pros, our mission is to apply our AI to power up the e-commerce solution. So we don't provide the platform. We have services that power into the platform, and it's really platform agnostic. We have some partnerships, and we're looking at developing some kind of plug and play with SAP Hybris and with CloudCraze. But any e-commerce platform, whether it's a specific platform or whether it's a homegrown website, whether you're using a CMS, can leverage the Pros services into the e-commerce site. And so we're really taking our AI, our product recommendations, our optimized pricing, and being able to serve those up into your e-commerce channels. For our existing customers, your investment that you've made leveraging Pros, if you're not already using that to power into your e-commerce site, we definitely want to talk to you, because you can leverage that same investment that you've used for price optimization, for product configuration, and extend that into your e-commerce channel. All right, so this is, again, what Pros does today. So we've taken, as opposed to, you don't see our product names here. What you see are the capabilities that Pros can provide, the services that we can provide into that e-commerce channel. And we'll go through a few of these. So personalized storefront. You can leverage Pros opportunity detection to provide a storefront page that's personalized to the buyer or to the dealer. So they're seeing the products that they need at that time, because we've detected that this is a product that they need. Maybe it's a product that's fit for their business, or a product that they had purchased in the past that they're no longer buying. And they're not seeing, out of your gigantic catalog, they don't have to search and find their own selections. It's right there. Being able to configure your products, so being able to self-serve in that product configuration experience, as opposed to kind of interacting with the sales rep, that kind of thing. It's easily selecting options and putting that in the cart and checking out. You can leverage our cross-sell into your e-commerce site. There are some needs around certain quoting and cart options that you can leverage our CPQ quote capabilities into your e-commerce site. And then dynamic pricing and price management. So your optimized prices, serving those up into your e-commerce site. And on the price management side, that's kind of the background capabilities, where you're working and looking at your pricing across channels, ensuring that those prices are harmonized and that they're rational across channels. So you don't have someone going onto your e-commerce site, seeing a price, and then engaging with the sales rep, and the sales rep gives them a higher price. That's not a good harmonized experience. Let's see. All right, so examples of each one. So this is opportunity detection, providing a personalized storefront. So we have the AI that's in opportunity detection, serving up in a kind of buyer-friendly presentation way, the products that the buyer would need at that point based on the AI where we've detected gaps in their buying patterns or historical declining buying patterns, that kind of thing. Just a quick plug, in this room, the next session, we'll have our product manager for opportunity detection going in a lot in depth around this solution and how it can be used in both a direct sales and an e-commerce environment. Configurations, if we're gonna take a look at a demo, so enabling the buyer to configure their own products that make sense. The product's already configured, they place it in the cart, and then it's seamlessly shipped. It's not a interaction back and forth, having the sales rep trying to figure out what they might want. It's a self-serve type experience. Using the same configuration constraints that you've already set up in CPQ and your sales rep use, you can expose that in the e-commerce channel. This is our AI around the cross-sell recommendations. So this isn't a rules-based kind of, if you buy this, you might want to buy that. This is leveraging the pros AI in automatically determining the cross-sell recommendations. This isn't something that somebody has to go through and maintain. This is a self-learning AI around the cross-sell recommendations. So it's a great tool that doesn't require management on the back end as far as maintaining, well, this product, you know, you might want to buy this one, that kind of thing. It's an AI-based machine learning solution. And again, you can leverage it in your direct sales for your sales reps as they're engaging to offer and recommend products, but you can also serve it up into your e-commerce channel and have it right there. Flexible quoting. There are some needs that certain B2B, especially around a e-commerce partner portal, where they may need to do some complex quoting that really isn't offered in a lot of e-commerce platforms. So we can actually leverage the Powerful Pros quoting engine into your e-commerce environment. And optimized pricing for every customer. So you can leverage your pros guidance and apply your e-commerce pricing strategy on top of that and serve those prices in a dynamic manner, real-time into your e-commerce environment. Yesterday, during the keynote, Andres and Christine talked a little bit about our real-time dynamic pricing engine. And that's one of the things that we're really excited with. I don't know if anybody saw the Greyhound keynote, but they're leveraging pros to dynamically serve up prices in their B2C environment, real time, bringing in competitive data, market data, to adjust those prices dynamically into their e-commerce environment. And then finally, on the back end, you need to make sure that your prices across channels are managed and they're rationalized. Maybe not necessarily the same. You may have a little bit different pricing strategy in a self-serve kind of e-commerce, but again, you don't want to have the conflict where a buyer goes onto your e-commerce, sees a price, and then finds out that they could have gotten much lower from a direct sales, or that, even worse, that they are engaged in a direct sales and direct sales quotes them a higher price than what they have seen on the e-commerce channel. So with that, Loretta kind of showed you that e-commerce platform picture. We want to be very clear around where pros really brings the power to that e-commerce. An e-commerce platform, even the best ones, aren't going to do these things, everything on this picture well. So what we have outlined in the pink is where pros can really provide that extra power. So it's not a matter of, you know, here you can have maybe pricing rules using a basic e-commerce, but you can't have that optimized e-commerce pricing without pros. So pros provides those services to plug into your e-commerce platform and really power that up. Loretta, do you want to tell us about
Yeah.
a couple of customers that we want to highlight?
We actually have a couple of customers who are implementing the Pro solutions into their e-commerce environment. So the first one is Saint-Gobain, which is a French glass manufacturer out in France. Actually, I just said that. And they basically they've served up our configurator into their e-commerce environment, and now they're able to support over 15,000 users. And basically what it does is that they can go onto their web portal and they can self-serve and they can create the dimensions that they want for each of the glass, get that cut, and push that out to the manufacturer without ever having to engage with a salesperson. If you want to go to the next one. The next one is actually Manitou. So I know Randy Carey, who is from Manitou, he's actually here at the conference. He spoke in this room yesterday. I don't know if anybody got a chance to catch some of his speech, but they are a company, so they are a construction company, or they make construction equipment. They're very well known in the European market, and they actually are leveraging Pro solutions. So they're again also leveraging some of our configuration capabilities. And before they started leveraging it, what I heard was that it would take forever for their dealers to be able to get a quote to a customer. I think sometimes it would take about 30 days to go through a configuration process, get through the right pricing for some of their construction equipment. And they basically integrated the Pro solutions, and with that, 70% of orders that they're getting are actually coming through their e-commerce portal. And they changed their turnaround time from 30 days to less than a day. So this is another customer or another example in which they're now using some of the capabilities that we have to help their dealers to self-serve.
All right, thanks, Loretta. All right, Eleanor, we have about 2 minutes. So we had a demo. I don't think we're gonna have time to get to it, but the great thing is Innovation Center, go to the e-commerce services. They have, my teammate Jerome should be there, and we can kind of do a one-on-one, go in depth around that demo and more in depth around the solutions of how that powers in an e-commerce site.
Thank you very much. We do have a couple questions, actually. It's great. And for anybody who has a question, you still have time. Just go into your app, and you can submit it right there. It's anonymous, and I can read it from here. Or if you just raise your hand, I can come to you with the microphone as well. So how should we handle agreements and contracts within our e-commerce portal?
I'll let you take that.
Yeah. So we have customers. It kind of depends. So there is if we're talking about agreed to negotiated pricing and contracts. So we have customers that have contracts and agreements that they've set, and then we're able to identify and serve up those contracted prices and terms into the e-commerce portal for those customers. But then if they look at maybe a product that's not covered by that, then they would get essentially either their list price or if they're using our price optimization, their optimized price for that product. So we have from that standpoint. There are some use cases that we're exploring as opposed to be able to actually set up and negotiate and kind of interact through an e-commerce setting with contracts. But that's one of the things that we're exploring. How do we make that easy and better? Right now, we're really focused on making sure that the existing contracts, those terms and conditions, pricing is all served up in a self-serve way for the customer to leverage the e-commerce portal.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up questions to that? Okay. All right, next question. How do customers get the e-commerce features that you just showed?
That's a great question. So if you think about some of the pros products that we have today, if you've currently invested in any of the solutions that we have, so Smart CPQ, guidance, control, you can actually leverage that existing investment and just extend that into your e-commerce portal. So I would say engage with your sales team if you have already invested in one of the products and you want to see how you can use that product in an e-commerce way. We would be more than happy to show you how you can do that, but it's just getting one of the products, and we have e-commerce plugins for them.
Great, thank you. All right, finally, what e-commerce platforms does Pros work with? think you
Again,
touched on that.
so the e-commerce, they are services. They're external APIs that can work with any e-commerce platform, so it's not a platform-specific thing. It can work with a internally developed e-commerce site if you're using a CMS, web content management system, or if you're using a full e-commerce platform like a SAP Hybris. We can work with any of those. We are looking towards, for some of the bigger platforms like SAP Hybris, like CloudCraze, putting in more plug-and-play type extensions to make those very quick and easy. But other than that, it's simple APIs that your e-commerce platform is probably already using for some other of your enterprise systems.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions for Loretta or Amber? Okay. Awesome. Thank you guys very much. I want